So Geraint Lloyd-Williams. Thank you.
Unrhyw un? Anyone? Na, diolch yn fawr.
Nothing, no urgent matters from the chair anyway.
To the minutes of the last meeting, cofnodion y cyfarfod dwytha, a gynhalwyd ar y 28.
Held on the 28th of January. Does anybody want to correct anything? Can you find any errors? No. Can somebody propose that they're correct? Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Peter.
Is there anything arising, os gwelwch yn dda? Rhian, you had 2 letters to send. Has that been done?
Yes, the letters from the chair in response to the 2 education items last time we had. You wanted to thank all the staff that have been involved with getting schools back open and supporting education, not only from the education service, but from all other services. That email went out to all staff shortly after the meeting. And also on the learner transport and Welsh medium education, you asked that a letter be sent in response to the consultations that had been discussed at that meeting with regards to learner transport and Welsh medium categorisation, that a letter be sent to the Welsh Government ministers and Deputy Minister on that. Though that letter has been sent and copies of both of those are now in the information brief that was circulated to you. I think I circulated it on Monday.
Thank you, Rhian. I can't hear the chair because he hasn't got his microphone on, I'm afraid. We'll move on then. We'll welcome Councillor Brian Jones.
Okay, thank you. The first item on the... Can you hear me okay, can you? Yep. Yeah, good.
I hear you, Brian. Move on, please. Diolch yn fawr.
Right, okay, I can't put my camera on because the receptions are not good enough. That's probably fortunate or unfortunate, whichever way you look at it. So the first item on this morning's agenda is the trade waste and recycling review. Last time we were at this committee, we did say that we would come back with an update. We offered that, and that's why we're here this morning. It's a pretty detailed report. There's a lot of information in the packs there. The most relevant piece of the work is Appendix 1. We're honoured this morning with the presence of Tony Ward, head of service, and equally honoured with the presence of Tara Dumas, who's obviously the lead officer on this report this morning. So we're here to look at the residual waste operation, part of which is outsourced to Veola, and then there's the DCC in-house arm of it. Our view is that the service is working well. There was obviously interruptions last summer due to the COVID pandemic, but overall we believe it's working well. Always room for improvement, as always, and our proposal is that we carry on and we continue to operate in this way. So with these few words, I'll hand over to Tony Ward, head of service.
Diolch yn fawr, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Over to you, Tony.
Diolch and bore da pawb. Yes, as Brian said, we outsourced. This is a review of our trade waste service. We outsourced the residual side of the trade waste service in August 2018, and that's time we committed to bring a report back to this committee.
Sorry, I can't hear a thing Tony's saying.
Tony, if you could switch off your camera, perhaps it would be better.
Apologies. I also know that Tara is having a great deal of difficulty this morning with her connection. So between us, we're not having a great deal of luck. Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay, fine. Well, I'll carry on then, and let me know if you still have trouble. So I say we outsourced the residual side of the trade waste service in August 2018, and we committed to bringing a review here at an appropriate point in time once we were able to review the success of that. And now is that appropriate time, hence the report. That part of that service is actually going really well, as Brian highlighted in his introduction. And the report shows the success of that outsourcing. So I suppose the headline news is that we intend to continue that arrangement in future and let a new contract for the residual side of the trade waste service when the current contract expires in August this year. However, we do intend to keep the recycling side of the trade waste service in-house because we feel we're better placed to do that than the private sector. If Tara's in a minute, once I've finished my introduction, if Tara's connection is good enough, then she will explain the reasons why we feel that we should keep the recycling element in-house. But as Brian said, there's a lot of information here, and apologies for that. It's a very detailed report, particularly Appendix 1, which is the review of the trade waste service, which was done by RAP Cymru. There's a lot of information there, but I think if you were to focus on anything in terms of the appendices, in terms of a kind of quick and ready way of seeing what's going on, then I think Appendix 2, which is on page 105 of the report pack, that is our action plan that we've put together, having considered the evaluation report from RAP Cymru in Appendix 1. So that details what we plan to do. And Appendix 3 lists the key performance indicators, which show how Veolia are performing within the current contract for the residual side of the trade waste service. So that's also a key piece of information there for you. And then there's some additional appendices there. Appendix 4 just shows some of the proposed vehicle types that we plan to use for the trade recycling service. And Appendix 5 shows the types of containers that we plan to use. And then we've got another Appendix 6, which highlights some of the risks associated with this aspect of our business. So that's a very quick, high-level overview of where we are. As I say, if Tara's there and able to speak, then she will briefly explain why we feel that we should keep the recycling element of the service in-house. And after that, we'll open it up for comments and questions and debate, if that's okay, Chair.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn, Tony.
Right, thank you, Tony.
Yes, yeah, I think yeah, it's very difficult at the beginning, but I think since the cameras have gone off, it's been a little bit easier to hear. So thank you for that. Yeah, just on the main point that Tony wanted me to expand on, why we're keeping the recycling in-house, why we've made that decision. We are better placed to deliver a source segregated service in the future, because we're actually moving to that model with our domestic rounds. So that means that rather than collecting the recycling all mixed together like we do now, we'll be asking our businesses to separate that material, and that's in line with the government blueprint, but also in line with legislation coming through the Environment Act. Basically, you know, if we're not able to provide that service for our businesses, they won't be able to comply with the law either. And the private sector, you know that there's a waste development, a depot development going on in Denby at the moment to provide those facilities for us to collect source segregated. It's not cheap to deliver infrastructure of that, of that scale, and the private sector are just not geared up to do that in the North Wales region. We already collect quite a lot of recycling for the private sector on mixed recycling. So in the south of the county in particular, a lot of private sector operators don't want to work because it's not as efficient for them to go down and collect recycling in those areas. So they'll be less inclined to do so when it goes to a source segregated system. So we are, to be able to make sure that the businesses in our county can comply with the new laws, I think that we should be offering that service. In addition to that, I think we're keeping it in house as well because we gain our own efficiencies from the domestic service. So we're proposing that we will collect the larger bins, the 4-wheel bins, the recycling bins, alongside the communal containers that we've got out at about several hundred locations across the county, where there's communal locations. If we merge those two services together, we can get efficiencies on the domestic round. Some of the smaller businesses that only need a trolley box, which is detailed in Appendix 5, for recycling, because they don't create a lot of waste at all. We can service those on our domestic round as well, which means they'll get a weekly service, and it means it'll be more efficient, which means we don't have to charge a high price for collecting recycling, which a lot of businesses aren't willing to pay or are not able to pay. So that's the two main reasons.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tara.
Does
So,
anybody want to ask any questions?
Okay.
Would I ask Hugh Irving first?
Hugh, diolch.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Obviously, this service just includes in the business rate, so there's additional charges. So I presume that's going to have an impact on whether people try to make their own arrangements or sign up for it. I might have missed something in the appendices, but how do the charges vary from, like, should we say, the smaller high street retail premises up to larger factories? Is there an example or of what business, small business particularly, are expected to pay to comply with these regulations?
Tara, I think that's probably one for you if you're able to answer that.
I could probably half answer it. I can't fully answer it, to be fair. We haven't looked exactly at what the charges will be for the recycling going forward. We know it will cost more because there is more infrastructure. What as I say, the Microsoft at the moment, the way we charge at the moment is it's a fixed amount depending on the size of container that the customer has. And what the report recognised, what the RAT report recognises, is that we actually do offer a wide range of sizes so that small businesses can dispose of their waste really efficiently. So we have a cardboard stickers that people can buy to dispose of cardboard. For containers, we have a range of containers from 140 litre bins right up to the full 1100s. And again, that is something the private sector don't always offer. So people pay for the size of container that they have. And we are also extremely flexible in that some of those businesses we might only go to monthly. If it's recycling and there's no food waste and things like that in it, we don't have to do a collection every week. We don't have to do it, we really do meet the customer's needs. And I think that's why our customer base for smaller businesses is actually quite strong. And we tend to attract a lot more SMEs than we do larger companies who, can have a sort of like even greater range. Sometimes the larger companies have large skips that they have emptied. We don't have a skip service. We don't have the infrastructure for that at this current time. It doesn't mean we wouldn't in the future though. So currently that people pay more or less for what, for the size containers. And in the private sector, that tends to be more, they get charged by weight. So initially when they get quoted from the private sector, it might appear cheaper, but then when they get charged for extra weight charges and things like that, it tends to work out more expensive. So we do sometimes see customers leaving us, but then coming back to us when they realise that it's actually more expensive with the private sector. So we do feel we offer the businesses of Denbighshire, value for money in the services. We want to continue doing that moving forward. And that's why we want to keep recycling in-house so that we can build it into the efficiencies of our domestic round and make sure that we recover our costs, because we must recover our costs. We have a duty to do that, but not actually excessively profit from that situation.
So what might somebody pay for a 40 litre container then?
Well, it depends on the type of waste it is, and we don't actually offer a container service at this moment in time, so we haven't put that, we haven't actually established what those charges will be at this moment in time for the future, where it would be, our smallest container is a 140 wheel bin. I don't have the prices to hand. They are on the website. We can provide a list of prices to you, because it all depends on what waste is in there and whether they've got the recycle. For example, if it's a residual bin, then there'll be a charge for that because it's got higher disposal costs than, say, food waste, for example, which has a lower disposal cost. So the smallest container that we do offer is the 23 litre caddy for food waste. The new laws do say that anybody producing over a certain amount of food waste must have a food waste service. So that will be all cafes, restaurants, takeaways, but it could also be businesses that have food waste because they have a large number of employees as well. And we offer a caddy, and we actually don't make a profit on that service. We're trying to incentivise that they use their food waste service. So the charges are very low. They're just over £1 an empty for those cabbies. They're not very high at all.
Diolch yn fawr. Peter?
Thank you.
Peter?
Thank you, Chair. I've just a couple of questions on Appendix 3B and A. A's got performance deductions, and looking at the green line, there's only 1 point there. What does that do?
Could you switch off your camera, Peter? Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
Start again.
I'm just looking at Appendix 3A and 3B. It's got performance scorecards, and down the right hand side there's a green line on 3A and a score of 1 for reporting, and then at the bottom it says deductions. I'm just wondering what that refers to. Similar with 3B, it's got reporting £1,100 penalty liability. It says not applied. I wondered why that wasn't applied. And then just a general question, is this waste collection helping with climate change? That's one for Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I know Tara will be able to respond to that question because we were discussing it earlier on this morning. Are you okay with that, Tara?
Yes, certainly. The performance deductions for the Veolia contract, it's basically a suite of KPIs, and if there's a tolerance within all of those KPIs for performance, and if they fall outside of that tolerance, then penalties can start to apply. And the only time that they have actually gone outside of that tolerance is with the timing of their report. So they're required to provide a monthly performance report to us. And there are quite short turnaround timescales to that report that actually they agreed to at the beginning of the contract. And basically on the first one, on 3A, they actually only came outside of that tolerance by a couple of days for that report. And at that point in time, we didn't even chase that report. It came a few days late. We were all very busy. It's not like we were trying to get a report out of them and it didn't come. And the reason I put that, a lot of contracts don't have that KPI in their contracts. And if you've got a failing contract and a contract that's not working very well, one of the things that happens is that the contractor avoids giving you the performance information for scrutiny so that you can actually take performance deductions off them. And I've fallen foul of that in the past in other authorities that I've worked in. So I put that extra KPI in there to make sure they were giving us that performance information. Now the contract has run extremely well from the very beginning, and one of the reasons for that is because the member of staff that 2P'd across continued to be the driver for that vehicle. So it was a very smooth transition. We've had no issues whatsoever with their performance. So both on that occasion, and then on the occasion where I've said basically there's about £1,000 worth of penalties because they were late with the report, I took the decision, which is the right as the authorised officer to do so, not to apply the penalties, because in that time we hadn't tried to chase that report. They weren't avoiding giving it to us. It was just an oversight on an officer's point of view from them. If they had chased it and they had refused to give it, then I would have applied the penalties. So I was satisfied that the contract is running well, and there was no need to do that. I don't like to be punitive with contractors that are working really well with us. It's not helpful in the relationship that you build.
Brian?
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, there's a relentless drive in everything we do in Denbighshire to pursue the recycling targets, to drive them down. So in answer to Peter Scott, yeah, without going into all the details, there is an element of helping towards the recycling rates in what we're doing here on this particular aspect of the service. And there's regulations that govern it as well, besides our efforts and our wishes on the direction that we're travelling.
Just to add to that,
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, would you like me to add something else to that as well? Because I think it's an important point with the residual waste with Veolia. The reason they can offer us a good price in the contract for collecting residual waste is because they will also co-collect their own customers on the same vehicle. So they'll have customers down in Corwin and the south of the county, and they will collect them at the same time as ours. Now that means that you haven't got two different waste vehicles travelling to collect. So there's a carbon saving right there. So it leads to financial efficiencies. It also leads to environmental efficiencies as well. I did mention earlier that there's a lot of larger organisations and larger waste collection firms that won't even entertain collecting from that part of the county.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Sarah. Before I move to Mairig, because he isn't part of the committee, but thank you for your attendance. The question I have is, what about local areas? Is this a risk for us to get everybody to recycle well? What are the greatest problems you have? I can think of flats as well. There are two questions there then. How are you going to make this work that to an extent has been forced upon us by Welsh Government? How are you going to help people who live in rural areas to get this situation better? And what about people who live in flats? Thank you.
Do you want me to start with this one, Tara? Tara's saying she's struggling with the translation element. I've just had a chat message from her, so it's probably best that I do answer that one because I did have the translation service working. Oh, hang on, right. There we go. Sorry, I thought I just left the meeting by mistake, but I'm still here. I suppose the answer to that, Chair, is that relates mainly to or more to the household collection service rather than the trade waste service, which this review was about. But that's fine. I think it's important to just briefly say that the way we're approaching the household collection service and the new model is that it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all model. So you know, the model that we've set out, we know will work for the majority of households and the majority of situations in the county, but it won't actually suit everybody. So we're not going to try and force round pegs into square holes, and we have got a range of modifications to that model planned for particular circumstances like the ones you pointed out, you know, where we've got a large number of flats, for example, or HMOs. You know, not everybody is going to have the ability to work with the new model because they won't have the space necessarily for all the containers, for example. So you know, there are going to be differences to meet certain situations, and I think we are due to Tara will probably remind me when it is, but we are due to come to a scrutiny committee or Rhiann's nodding her head, so she probably knows more than me when it is, but we are due to come in the fairly near future with an update on the household the collection service and the new model. Rhiann, when are we doing that? Can you remind me?
Yeah, 13th of May, I think, to community scrutiny.
There we go. It's fairly soon then. So
busy man. Da iawn. Diolch yn fawr, Tony.
Is that okay?
Yeah, fine. Mary Lloyd Davis.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks for the very comprehensive report that's full of information. But one or two points that I'd like to draw attention to from my point of view anyway. The report isn't in part 2, obviously, but why do we have, as a county council, have to wash our dirty laundry in the view of the public and in view of this private competition? The private sector can refuse, can't they? They call it commercially sensitive. I don't know why we can't get the governments to change the rules in terms of that. And the second point, is there a price list of private companies against our own, so that we can compare our costs against the private sector, if they do offer them at all? And thirdly, are the recycling centres in the report in the future, how do they work? Are we making at a loss, for example? And the final question, this has arisen following the second point. Are these boxes, the recycling boxes, easy to use? If you haven't got room at the back of your house, and say you've got steps to the road and you need to lift these over the steps to get them out. So
Okay.
I
I can start to respond to some of those, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
I'm not sure whether Tara is able to hear the questions. I'm not sure if she's having some technical problems.
I've got the final 3 points. I managed
Okay,
to
fine.
figure out what to do on the screen to get the Welsh.
Okay,
So,
well done. Well, I'll start, and you can
I'll take over.
you can chip in if you want. I mean, I'm not quite sure what the washing our dirty laundry in public question referred to, if I'm honest. I'm not sure that this report does that. So, but I'm happy to respond to if there's some further detail on the question. The last question on the boxes again relates to the recycling containers, relates to the household collection service, which we're not here to discuss today, but we will be coming to scrutiny in May to talk about, as Rhian pointed out. So probably best if we have those discussions, when we bring that paper in May, because so obviously we will be going over those things then. I'm going to I'll pass over to Tara for the question about the price list for the private companies, and I'm not quite sure. I have to ask Merrick if you can elaborate on the question about the recycling centres. I wasn't quite sure what the question was, if that's okay. But Tara, do you want to talk about the price list one?
Yeah, the private sector, this is very common actually, that local authorities tend to be quite transparent with their pricing and have prices on the websites or certain lists that they can phone up. And the reason for that is that we like to be, we have to be seen to be being fair. We shouldn't be charging somebody a lot more than another business. The private sector do that. What they do is they will base their initial quotes, and sometimes they'll even do it. They'll undercut themselves because they've got 5 other businesses they're collecting from in that street. So collecting that extra one, it's really just the weight charge that they have to worry about because they're there anyway. So that you'll find that one business will get a very different price to another. So they will not publish their prices at all. We have a feel for what they are, but ultimately each individual customer will get a different price depending on where they are and how efficient it is for that company to collect. As a local authority, I think we have to be a bit fairer, because if we did that, the businesses in the south would have a much higher collection charge than those in the north, because of the fact that it's not as there's not a concentration of businesses down there, which is why as I say, a lot of the private sector don't service the south of the county. And so I hope that covers off that question there. The recycling centres, I wasn't quite sure where you were coming from on that. If you could elaborate on that question, that'd be great.
Do
you want to ask the question again? Yes, I will do. Thank you for that, Chair. The first part, all I was talking about, it's a saying, isn't it, that you wash your dirty laundry in public. In light of what I was trying to say,
that's what I was meaning by the old-fashioned.
what do we have to give so much information to the private side in our report?
To these private companies, and yet, as you quite rightly say yourself, we get the information from them. And I think this is the unfairness in the system. The last one, yeah, Canolfan there,
Yes.
you know, the ones in Rill and Rhythin. Will there be a report later on in the year on those, and how are they getting on, that sort of thing? Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Tony?
Okay, so it's the household waste recycling centres. I mean, we obviously that's part of our household collection service, not the trade waste one. I'm trying to think if we've got anything planned in the foreseeable future in terms of a report on that. We are currently working on a proposal for a new contract to manage our household recycling centres. We're doing that in collaboration with Conwy. So at some point we will be bringing something somewhere for a decision on that, presumably to cabinet. Brian, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, we've already been to a scrutiny with it, haven't we, already?
Yeah.
One of the scrutiny committees, so it's this is
We
not
have,
new what
yeah.
you're announcing here. So yeah.
No. I mean, we've been there. We've taken it there for agreement that we're going to pursue that collaboration. But at some point, we'll have to make a decision on the contract, and I guess that will come to cabinet because of the possibly because of the size of it.
Diolch yn fawr, ych chi'n hapus?
Thank you. Are you happy, Mairig? We move on now to Councillor Andrew Thomas.
Right, okay. Chair, it's not really too relevant to this, but I don't know whether we've actually had a visit to a recycling centre within living history, but if so, I've missed it. But when COVID's all over, I really would like to have a visit to one of these centres and just see how they separate all these things. I don't know whether other councillors feel the same, but it would be a useful learning curve for us.
Are you proposing that? Are you proposing? Yes?
It's sufficient interest.
I'll second it. Yeah.
Second, well seconded. Right. Are we all in agreement?
Yeah, it's open to all councillors.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Well done, Andrew. Good idea. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm sure we can arrange a visit to a recycling centre, Tara, can't we? Post COVID, once everything's.
I think what the councillors are referring to as well is not just the actual our WRCs, our recycling centres there,
the Shotton plant,
but also we have Park Adfer, which is the energy from waste facility that has a purpose-built visitor centre. Obviously, it's not been able to be used since it opened last year, but there is that facility. We're able to go and show you the Biogen facility where the food waste is recycled. Shotton, where we send our recycling now, is not. They do not allow visitors there, but we're moving away from that system anyway. So we'd much rather show you something that is, is like what we're going to in the future. So we can arrange probably a trip that takes in a number of those facilities. The other thing is we are launching our very first reuse shop in the new financial year, which is currently being installed on the Rill HWRC. And that's going to be managed by CAD Recycling and occupied by a charity who will benefit from that shop and the retrieval of reusable items from the donations that people bring into the tips. So it's a really good project. It's been fully funded through the Welsh Government, and we've delivered it within a 3-month window because it was some last minute funding that they had available. And through working extremely hard, and the officers and private sector working together, we've managed to get that installed, and it should be up and ready hopefully towards the end of April, in May. So there'll be a launch of that as well.
Okay, Chair, I can see a coach trip coming on in future post-COVID. We can have a waste and recycling road trip and go and visit all of these facilities, and that's fine.
It's a good idea.
Can I suggest we have a
yes, please. Yes.
Can I just say, why can't we see the Shotton? I think that is one of the more intriguing things, how they actually do separate all these things. And I sort of smell a rat. If you can't see it, then they're just sort of shipping it all off to
Have they,
China.
do they not do that anymore, Tara? Because they used
No,
to. They
I've
used to
been
have
I've been
visitors.
round. They did show me around, but they said they don't accept visitors. I mean, we can ask if they would perhaps mind it. You know, maybe at the end of a shift or something. It's safety reasons. They did have quite a serious accident a few years ago, and I think they just don't. I can take you to a similar facility outside of the North Wales region if you want that. I've sort of been involved with in the past. It uses the same equipment. It can show you what to do. And they do have a visitor centre. They do have a safe viewing window and things like that. It's just they're not set up for it wasn't built with the visitor facility in mind, so you can't just sort of wander around.
Well, we can certainly ask the question though, Andrew, because I've been round there as well, and it is actually quite interesting. It's so we'll ask
if
the
we
question.
can't go, could somebody describe what they actually do?
I can get you a video.
Is it labour intensive or what?
Yeah, it's a very largely mechanical automated process, to be honest. They've got a lot of conveyor belts essentially. It's a big line of conveyor belts that go into different parts of the facility, and they've got magnets and air blowers to kind of separate the different types of materials. And there's a small element of hand sorting, for the bits that the machines don't kind of pick up. They go through things and fall through holes and that kind of things to separate stuff. So it is, it's an interesting facility, but it's largely automated. But they do have an element of some people just on a conveyor belt, just separating things by hand as well.
I do have an educational video that's shot and produced when they first opened the materials.
Oh right, yeah.
So I'll see if there's any more footage on that, and if there is, I'll circulate it to Rhiannon and she can get it out to you all.
Well, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Thanks to Andrew for arranging a trip for us. Time is moving on. Councillor Emryswyn, you can come in. Very briefly now, please. Yes, I was just picking up on the possibility of having a bus trip to see this facility. It was mentioned briefly, but then we were told that there's a video available. So in the long term, we must avoid going on any bus at the moment, or in not too in the future. And I think we should make use of any videos that can be showed with us. I'd be happy with that.
A word, because this is your responsibility, and Tony and Tara have explained very well. Brian, dach chi eisiau deud rhywbeth?
Brian, do you want to say anything?
No, I'm quite happy the way that this has gone this morning. I think it's an excellent idea to, when COVID allows, to trip out to visit the site. Certainly Park Adver will be an eye-opener for members, and it is geared with a visitor attraction, if you like, if that's the right word. So that's definitely worthwhile going to Park Adver. You can really see the benefits of what happens with the residual waste. Really good stuff it is, so I'd recommend that highly. Thank you, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Brian.
Thank you very much, Brian, and thanks to Tony and Tara.
That's on page 14. Gai rhywun sy'n cynnig bod nhw...
Could I get somebody to propose that we accept them? And thank you for this comprehensive report and all the work. Thank you, Peter, for proposing an early charge for seconding. So we're very grateful once again.
Coming up this morning, a lot of hard work. This is a very important section of Denbighshire, and we're very grateful for your work, Tony and Tara. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr, Chair.
Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, pawb.
Thank you. Is everybody in agreement that we accept?
Diolch, Rhian. Thank you. We move on to the next one now. I think Bethan is here. Mae Bethan wedi cyrraedd. Diolch yn fawr. Item 6, item 6.
Liz is here, isn't she?
Yeah, been here all morning.
So who have we got here on behalf of the Cabinet? Nobody.
Chair,
Over to you then, Liz.
Chair, if I can just let you know that if the lead member's been held up in another meeting, he should be with us in a few minutes. So are you happy for me to take the report until Tony comes?
Ie, iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn, croeso.
Okay.
Yes,
Diolch.
fine, thanks very much.
Okay, I'll switch my camera off in case there's any problems with the connection.
There we are.
Okay. Have you rydw i'n cyflwyno adroddiad am safonau a
Presenting a
perfformiad y
report on the
gwasanaeth y
standards and
llyfrgell.
performance of the library service.
Dwi'n dysgu Cymraeg,
I'm learning Welsh,
ond byddaf yn troi
but
i
I'll be
Saesneg
turning to
rŵan.
English now. Excellent.
Well done.
Diolch.
Thank you.
So those of you on who have been on performance scrutiny have seen me and Bethan before. We have an annual performance report that we submit to the Welsh Government, and we take the opportunity to bring it to scrutiny so that we can share our performance with you. Just to let you know that this report does cover the financial year 2019 to 2020. So the back end of that year was, of course, when COVID hit. So we've taken the opportunity in our report to give you a bit of an update of what we've been doing with our library service during lockdown since last March. So the Welsh Public Library Standards, for background information, we have a statutory duty to deliver what's called a comprehensive and efficient service to its residents. In Wales, we're very lucky to have a framework of Welsh Public Library Standards, which means that we have a number of standards that we need to adhere to for the Welsh Government to feel assured that we are delivering according to the statute. We have we submit a self-assessment, and then Welsh Government review that and publish a formal assessment, which they share back with us. And the assessment tells us whether or not they agree that we've met our core entitlements, of which there are 12, and quality indicators, of which there are 16. The report is in Appendix A. We meet all of our 12 core entitlements, which is good news. And there are 16 quality indicators. 10 of them have targets. As you can imagine, there's been some discussion about how we measure our performance against the standards, given the limitations we've had due to COVID. So last year, for 1920 report, 3 of the quality indicators were removed. And in fact, there's more discussions about what we might do to report on our performance for the year 2020-21. We think it might become much more of a narrative report. Of the remaining 9 targets for 2019 to 20, we achieved 7 in full, 1 in part, and did not achieve 1 of the indicators. And we can give you some more information on that if you wish. We haven't had a significant change to the Welsh Government's review of us, although they did note our strong commitment to health and well-being. We've been very active in building our partnerships with our community support services within Denbighshire, and also in particular with the BCU and the mental health services, and also the third sector in that respect, and that's going to continue to be important going forward. Increasing use of digital resources, and the report was pleased to see our focus on the development of staff. I'm very keen to ensure that our staff are properly trained and supported to be able to deliver a fully professional library service. With regard to staffing levels, just make a note that we didn't achieve this quality indicator fully, although I suspect we're being a bit hard on ourselves here. As you know, in Denbighshire, our library service is fully integrated with the one-stop shop service. So actually, we report 50% of staffing as library service, although my suspicion is that actually there's a greater proportion of library type service delivery that we're doing than 50%. So we might review this going forward. We didn't meet the quality indicator on up-to-date reading materials. We are acquiring new reading materials, but we don't get close to the target that Welsh Government has set us in terms of our spending on that. That was a decision made several years ago, and that scrutiny, we've lived with that since then. And I think the work that the library staff do, and also the partnership work that we have across North Wales, means that our readers in Denbighshire are not severely impacted by that. You might just note on 4.9 that actually we've been ranked first for the number of Welsh books borrowed per capita. I think that might be the first time we've been at the top of that table. Bethan might correct me, but that's particularly good news. And again, just like to give credit to our staff, because we have a great deal of very enthusiastic readers in both English and Cymraeg, as well as supporting a significant number of reading groups, of which a good number of them are Welsh reading books as well. I'm going to throw Bethan in at the deep end, because I'd like Bethan to take over and talk to you about some of the highlights of the work that we've been doing through the pandemic, if that's all right with you, Chair.
Unless Tony wants to say a word, welcome.
Oh, is Tony here now? Sorry,
yes,
I've been gabbling away. I've missed. Sorry, Tony. Over to you. Do you want to say something?
Sorry, Tony.
Sorry, I missed the start. I mean, I was on time. I was about 10:44, but there you go. Yeah, I think the library service has done very well. I mean, we've had a pat on the back from the Welsh Government, so very pleased with it. And the stats.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So, Chair, are you happy for us to go on to, as I say, this isn't strictly speaking in relation to the report and the performance report, but we thought scrutiny might find it helpful to see what we've been doing, the sorts of things we've been doing in the last year. You happy for us to go straight on to that now?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yes, welcome to Bethan Hughes.
Okay, Bethan. Bethan, you're on mute.
Mute. It's the language of Wales.
Thank you. I'm going to turn the camera off. If you're happy for me to do that, Chair. I'll translate as I go on because I've got the English copy in front of me. Yes, it's been a very busy year under the circumstances, and we felt that it was important to reflect in the reports the activities that have taken place during the pandemic here. So even though our doors have had to shut more than once, the service has continued. So during the first lockdown, we were providing calls for people who were shielding at home, a service I know that you were aware of and that has been appreciated greatly by local residents. There was also an opportunity to extend the digital service provision, and we saw great growth in the number of people who were using that service because, of course, they had no access to print books at that time. And those figures show that we've seen an increase of over 100% in the use over the year. And I must also acknowledge the support of the Welsh Government, who have provided a substantial amount of funding to increase the level of resources available across Wales. We have got a joint service across Wales providing e-books, digital books. The team, this Good Start pupils, I'm sure you're aware, with our Sure Start team, we're working with babies and young children. They went straight over in the first week to provide a service online, and that's been an excellent, a successful service with many people watching, not only live on Facebook, but they also go back to look at the videos time and time again. And the plan is to continue with that element, even though when there's means for us to do this face-to-face in the future. We established a brand new service in the summer that was an order and collect service, so that people could phone us or order online in order to get hold of books. And that was a brand new service, as I said. And again, our plan is to continue with that offer whilst people are still when they're still able to come into the library to choose their books. We were also very fortunate to be lucky in our financial application to the cultural fund by the government to run a digital transformation system. We haven't yet been able to show the fruits of that because of being shut, but it will be launched once we reopen in spring. And that was to reuse some of the small rooms that we have that used to be used for one-to-one meetings. Of course, with the social distancing rules, that hasn't been possible, so we're going to use those again and offer a location in all of our libraries where somebody, if they need to take part in a meeting such as this, or maybe an interview for a job or a medical consultation, and that they don't have the facilities or the means maybe of the quiet place to do that themselves, they can come into the library and hire free of charge. Hire the room, and there'll be a laptop there connected, and they can take part in meetings digitally, individually or as a pair, obviously if they come from the same home. Liz mentioned our emphasis on staff development, and another project that I've led on behalf of the Welsh Libraries over this recent period is a plan to train library staff and to develop their confidence in holding activities and events online. And this has been a very exciting project. People are looking forward to the future, and that is just coming to an end now, but this is the first chapter in a new way of working for libraries across Wales, so that has been a very positive project to be part of. We've seen the launch of a plan, better reading plan for children during the winter months, and we're now beginning discussions with partners in the social care sector and the health sector to extend that programme now into the sectors so that we can support health and well-being, or their mental well-being in particular. So those are the highlights during this challenging year, and I'm sure you will forgive me, give me the opportunity to thank the team of staff. It's been miraculous over the year, and they've provided an excellent service to our communities. Thanks very much. And thank you. And the greatest thanks is to you, Bethan, for the leadership that you have shown to the staff. Excellent. I like the term that you used in Welsh, to graze through the books in the library again. Is there a question? I must go to a member of the committee first. I'm going to start with Councillor Ellie Chard.
I would like to say a big thank you to Bethan and the services, because when it was all online and I was sharing it with residents or whoever, it was on my Facebook page, so that was great. The well-being and of course the Sure Start, that was great, Bethan. And of course the 100% increase of digital orders and you thanking Welsh Government, so that's nice, and I've noted that. My question is on 4.7, and it's probably due to the fact that you haven't got as many staff qualified with library services, but I realise, and I think I probably said it last year, the year before, there's far more degrees. So when people have got their degrees and they're looking for jobs, and they've got other jobs there, maybe with a BA in something else. But the fact is that they've achieved their degree, haven't they? And I'm pleased that they're being employed by the services. Okay, there's no question, but I just like to thank you all.
Diolch, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie. We'll move to Councillor Hugh Irving now.
Thank you. Yes, well, I'm very conscious that if we go back to the life of early in the life of the previous council, there were real concerns about the future of the library service at the time. And we really had to think hard about how we were going to sustain it. And I think a brilliant job was achieved by Liz and all her team in making libraries into what I'm describing, rightly or wrongly, as a sort of a community hub. So we have meeting facilities and IT and all those sorts of.
You're cutting up. You're cutting up, Hugh. You're cutting up.
Just a moment. I'll take the camera off. I think that's been a wonderful asset to the libraries and has kept the footfall at sustainable levels. Now, my question is, I suppose we've lost an awful lot of that, and as we've just heard, we've replaced it with virtual and digital and other ways of doing it, but there's going to be an awful lot of people that can't enjoy that, or they might just want simply to go and pay a bill, as simply as that. So once we're getting through COVID, are there plans to return to that former level of face-to-face service?
Iawn, diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. We'll go to Peter Scott to ask the next question, then I'll come back to you, Liz and Bethan.
Thank you, Chair. Mine wasn't a question really. Mine was similar to Ellie. I just wanted to thank the library staff, Liz and Bethan, and thank the library and St Asaph for working with St Asaph City Council to keep going. It's been a wonderful combination of both councils, and the library is a beating heart of St Asaph, and just wanted to thank them very much. But that's all. No questions, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, okay, diolch. Liz.
Thank you.
Please, diolch.
Yes, happy to respond. There's no doubt, Councillor Irving, that that challenge still exists, and so we continue to look for opportunities to reduce expenditure and increase income. Just to acknowledge, we've actually come now to a come to a 3-year agreement with both Rhuddlan and St Asaph Community Councils for them to continue supporting us going forward for 3 years, which I'm really pleased about. Just switch my video off. And I think that's a model that we would be looking to develop going forward, as we very purposely in our library strategy talked about libraries being the beating heart of our communities, and the library buildings have been closed, but I think we've done a really good job in keeping in touch with library users, both proactively and reactively, over the phone, digitally, etc. There are people who have found other ways to pay their bills during lockdown, so we need to really interrogate that to see whether or not it's appropriate to bring back services exactly as they were before. Where possible, we'd like to support people to do their simple transactions in the way that they choose, in the most efficient way possible for them, as well as for us. So like so much else in the council, I don't think we'll go back to how it was entirely before, but what we do going forward is definitely being designed and planned in consultation with our library users, our communities, and also with council and cabinet going forward in terms of how we continue to save money.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Are you happy with that? One question from me. maybe. In the future, do you think that these libraries will be able to use the equipment or the resources that are in the archives and also in the National Library of Wales in Aberystwyth? Is that something you'll be looking at in the future?
Absolutely, definitely. I think Tony Thomas probably is better placed than me to answer, or Bethan. But I know for sure that our libraries are going to be really important part of making our archives accessible going forward. Bethan, do you want to pick that up, or Tony? Either of you?
Yeah, I'll pick it up if I may, please. Sorry. Yeah, prior to this, I've been in an archives meeting actually, and the libraries obviously are at the front of the archives project. You know that if we are successful on this lottery application, which we'll know in July, then yes, the idea is that each library will have a direct link to the new archive setup, which will be in 2025 if everything is successful.
Tony.
Thank you, Tony. What about the National Library of Wales? There is a relationship already with the National Library of Wales. Sorry. We also refer people to their online services, and as part of the digital skills activities that we're just discussing, we're discussing with them at the moment, and we're putting those products on the website of the Welsh Libraries, which has been run by the National Library of Wales. So there's a close relationship. That sounds interesting, and it's excellent that it's happening, because in the future things will change. Rhyddlan Library has been an important centre in the community, and we'll go back again to sing in the library with the dementia group. I'm hoping anyway. That is very important for us, to get people together, isn't it? And that's one thing where libraries have changed. Could I thank you before I move on to other people outside the committee? I've got two. Can I start with Councillor Emery Swin? Thank you once again for providing such an excellent report, and I appreciate sharing the comments that are so appreciative this morning from people around the table or in their homes, as it happens to be this morning. Could I also say that the public are so grateful? That's the greatest contact that I have with the contact over the last 12 months, people telling me how lucky we are of the services that are available, and accepting fully that under the circumstances that the library service in Ruthin, and I'm sure beyond Ruthin, throughout Denbighshire, are exceptionally good, and have helped lots of people as well during this period where people are home alone and so on. Hand on heart, I'm very, very grateful for that. There's a question to come somewhere, isn't there? Yes, what I would like to see is to be able to clear the board and get met in full with everything. How are we going to get that with updating the stock? I didn't know there was a problem with updating staff. Nobody has complained to me about updating staff, but because it's there, I'm going to ask the question, can we get rid of that by the end of the year? Who's going to respond to that?
I'll pick that up.
Thank you, Liz.
This was a question about us not reaching the indicator about expenditure on new stock. Is that right, Councillor? Yes. Yes. There was a conscious decision made a number of years ago. It might have been 10 years ago, certainly before my time, about reducing expenditure on new books. And once you kind of make that decision, then that kind of remains as a year on year because the money's been taken out of the budget. I think that at the time and possibly now as well, it was felt that the target was a bit high. I think that we've been able to deliver a really good service, library service, and we've been able to access. We've been able to give our residents access to books that they need and want. We do spend an awful lot of money on new books, children's books, adults books, Welsh language, English language books. Bethan would love to spend twice as much as we've got, as I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised to hear. But it's as in all services, it's a matter of kind of juggling the resources we've got and making the best of what we've got. So I have to say that I don't expect us to be able to be reporting that we're going to be meeting that target anytime soon, I have to say.
Thank you for the answer. Are you happy, Emrys? Very briefly, I think there's responsibility on us as members, therefore, to ensure that when discussing our budgets, to ensure that there plenty of money reaches departments where there are gaps to be filled. And I take that as a responsibility upon us and not the library service alone. They should say, this is what we need, and for us to do our best to meet that demand. I'm sure we'll do that. Thanks very much. We'll go back now to a member of the committee, Councillor Bob Murray. Welcome, Bob.
Hi, guys. Hi, Liz and Bethan. Lovely to see you both. Seems such a long time. I'd just like to thank you for a wonderful service. I've always enjoyed it. I've missed it being open, as our residents have voiced how much they miss the library being open, and I miss my papers because I've got to start paying for them now. But in all I think, thank you very, very much for the service, and I hope you open shortly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bob. You must be happy to hear that response, both of you, and Tony too. Could I go to the final question now from somebody from outside the council, Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis? Thank you again, Chair. Could I also thank the three, Councillor Tony, Hughes, Liz and Bethan, and also thank the staff of the libraries for the excellent work that they do. Even now, with the digital services and so on, but they're always very welcoming. They understand the questions that you have and are able to respond excellently, and thank you for that. But can I come back to this cuts that's been made? I remember, well, this cuts on new books. It was one of the savings put before us. But could I ask kindly to Liz, I'm sure to overcome this problem, do we buy books that the readers need and want? You know, there are plenty of books on the market, and they're only of interest to a very small percentage of people. Are you able to understand that and see that, and then buy the books that are read a lot and that the public are grateful for? Thank you. That's the question, Liz.
Bethan.
Thank you, Merrick, for your comments there. As professional librarians, part of our professional work is to keep that balance between providing the popular items that everybody wants to read, but also providing for interests that are more specialist, maybe across the whole population, be it adults or children. And our policies and our ways of choosing stock, yes, it is our intention to provide the popular books and also provide for the needs of more specific groups. The advantage, the fact that we work so closely across all North Wales libraries is that if somebody wants quite a specialist book, well then there's a possibility of getting that from one of our partner libraries across North Wales. So that is a way of working that's always existed amongst public libraries, that we share resources in order to meet the needs of the readers. Are you happy, Merrick? Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with Bethan, and that has always happened. And thank you for your response. Good question. Thank you. So we're coming towards the end of this item.
Happy with the recommendations in front of us. The committee considers and comments on the performance against the 6th framework of the Welsh Public Library Standards and consider requesting progress report in January 2022. Can someone say a few words that you are proposing this, please?
I propose, Chair. You want to go? Sorry.
What would I do without you, Peter? You're a good man. Diolch yn fawr, Peter. Would someone second that, please? Hugh Irving has seconded that. We're all in agreement. Diolch yn fawr iawn. There we are. I'm very, very grateful to you, Liz, for doing all this work, and of course to Bethan also and Tony for turning up today. Carry on with the good work. Cariwch ymlaen efo'r gwaith dda. Arbennig. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Now, and we're finished quite early, really. Not too bad, Rian? No? Not too bad. No, right. We have a break now of a quarter of an hour, so we'll see you 11:30. Hanner awr 11. Don't go away, but I will forgive Peter. Peter has to go for another meeting. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. You'll have to do without me now then, so someone else will have to start proposing.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
See you later on. Diolch yn fawr.
Bye.
Are we all here now?
Yeah, I'll mute myself.
Dyn ni gyd yma. Are they with us, Kath? Yeah, thank you very much, Kath, for your work. Diolch yn fawr. Okay, we move to item 7 now. We welcome Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill, Deputy Leader and Leader Member of Finance here, Performance and Strategic Assets, and also Yola McGregor. I don't think Alan Smith is with us today. Okay, so over to you, Julian.
Okay, I'm only going to briefly introduce this. I'm going to hand over to Yola to do to go through the bulk of the report. I just wanted to make a couple of general points at the beginning, if I may. I suppose it almost comes as a surprise that we're actually getting towards the period that's covered by this this corporate plan now. We're coming towards the final year of this council and therefore of this corporate plan. And we're already beginning to think about the development of a new corporate plan, but that doesn't mean that we obviously can take our eye off the ball with regards to the one that we've got in place. And it is very important that we continue to monitor it, and that we obviously welcome the input of this committee, which we bring it to on a fairly regular basis. As I say, Yola will go through the main body of the report, but I think it probably would be fair to say, as I think probably all reports are probably prefaced by these days, that COVID has had an impact on our deliverability of some elements of the corporate plan, inevitably. In many cases, it's just a slippage in a project, maybe in a timescale, or it may well be due to the fact that the staff that were going to be delivering it have been redeployed into doing something else for the authority. So the first part of the report deals with the impact of COVID on the plan. And then in terms of the actual main body of the report, as usual, it's broken down by priority area. And we report both against the delivery of the measures themselves and the projects which support those measures. And you'll see from the summary summary page at the beginning that by and large all the projects are generally reporting good progress. We've just undertaken a bit of a small tranche review to make sure that things remain on course with regards to that. Two of the measures remain a priority for improvement. I'm sure your members may well want to look at that, Chair. But again, just to point out that the excellence threshold we essentially have set ourselves is to be in the top quartile, and the priority for improvement is being below the median on the national benchmarking. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're performing really poorly in that particular area. It just means in comparison with the Welsh average, we're below average position. I think that's probably all I wanted to say as an introduction. So if I can hand over to Yolo to go through the highlights, please.
Diolch, croeso Iolo.
Thank you. Welcome, Iolo.
Apologies.
I will give a little bit more detail on the content of the report. Just to start off, this is out of sequence to what members would normally see. Ordinarily, you would be receiving the Q2 and the Q4, which also is our annual performance report. Now, because of the way COVID hit us in March, that meant we couldn't write our Q4 and annual performance report when we usually would during the summer. So members might recall that that came to committee in the autumn, but it then meant that it had a knock-on impact on when we brought you later reports. So we would have brought you Q2 ordinarily in the autumn, but having just shown you the annual performance report, we thought it would be better and more timely to circulate that one for information, and we would table instead Q3. And then eventually we will return to our normal timetable and we will bring you Q4 and the annual performance report again in the summer. So that's all timetabled in your forward work program. In the round, I think this is a good report. As Julian said, there's nothing controversial or shocking in it. The two priority for improvement areas are not going to be a surprise to members. Previous reports have shown the same. In terms of the connected community measures, well, we're all well versed as to, what the situation of broadband availability is in the county, and, feelings of members on that is well recorded. And then under the young people priority, that again is historic data, and you'll be well versed in the fact that we're not likely to get any decent education data for a good long while yet. That is a challenge for us in how we monitor education performance, but I know a separate paper has been brought to performance scrutiny on that already.
Yeah.
And then at the start of the report, we have continued to include a chapter now on how the council is responding to COVID. We will do that again for the annual performance report, of course, to document how the council has responded. But that's it in the main from me. I'm happy to take questions.
All right, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Okay, thanks very much. Nobody wants to ask a question so far?
The response to COVID-19 explains a lot, doesn't it, in the first part of the report. I would like you to not call it a blue bridge. I would like you to call it Pontyforid, if you don't mind. That's the official Welsh word for the bridge. I'm glad Ellie's on my side with that one.
Yes.
Thank you. Diolch, Ellie. This is a good report, I think. Diolch yn fawr iawn. What are the main priorities that in the future, Iolo? Where do you think we should go that really, we should be looking at to improve further? You say here, percentage of residents reporting they felt satisfied with the availability of housing in the area, but we have done a lot of work with that, but you still say priority for improvement. Why?
That's historic data. That data is from the resident survey that we did at the start of the corporate plan. So no surprise, members and the public told us that housing was a concern. It was evidenced by the survey that we conducted at that time. So that is historic data that we're looking at. Now, we are at the moment in the process of updating Denbighshire and Conwy's wellbeing assessment, which will consider issues like this in terms of what our priorities should be. This is obviously to inform the next corporate plan that Julian hinted at. And part of that exercise will be to rerun potentially the resident survey or a stakeholder survey that asks, what the priorities are in the county. And I wouldn't be surprised if housing is continuing to be featured in that as a priority for us. But I would also say that I think the council's housing programme is at the stage now where it's going to quickly ramp up. I think we will see rapid building of housing under the council's portfolio coming up. But whether that changes public perception.
Yeah,
thank you, Iolo.
Members to say a few words.
Sorry, Chair, could I just add to what Yolo said on particularly on the housing element? I think the other factor to bear in mind as well is those residents of ours who are actually within our housing stock. There's a separate survey that's carried out with our tenants, and those always actually, or I don't want to tempt fate there, but historically those have always returned very high satisfaction levels with the with the housing that we provide. I think the wider question that we're probably talking about this is the longer term problem that we know that there is an issue, and it's not just relating to ourselves in terms of the delivery of affordable housing in the more general sense. So I think you'll find, whilst we are doing a tremendous amount of work, both buying back previous stock and starting now to engage on a program of building, that's probably something that will have a fairly long tail to it before those sort of issues are viewed publicly as being in a better position. I would guess Liz might have a better take on that as well.
Come in, Liz, please.
Yeah, I'd like to, if you don't mind. Yes, the new build program, as you know, was slow to start, and then we were just about to start flying, and COVID hit. So there has been some delays in new builds, but we are now above ground on a number of different sites. So I'm thinking we should be seeing some actual pictures of new council houses rather than artist impressions fairly soon. Just as a by the by, we do a survey for our tenants called the Star Survey. Last time Jeff took the results of the survey around the mags. You may remember seeing them. My intention is to put it forward for scrutiny this time. So it might be that it comes through to performance scrutiny. I decided that this is the best for it to come through.
Thank you, Liz. You are breaking up a little bit. Just a little bit of information on what's happening in Rhuddlan. We've had an empty council house. It used to have about 12 people living there. Now it's been changed, and you have prepared the housing side for a person with a disability to live on the lower level, which is excellent work from Jeff's section. Diolch yn fawr, Liz. We move on to Hugh Irving now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The report is excellent. It's all the statistics are there as we would expect, and obviously it highlights where we stand, and of course it shows us that there are issues over housing, but they're not really the problem of the report, are they? The report is delivering the statistics, not doing anything about housing. When you see that we've got nearly 2,000 people on the waiting list for council housing, it's desperate, isn't it, when we are approached by residents with a problem. And we know full well that there's little we can do, but we do what we can to support their application. So how do we use the statistics in the report to actually say, we've got to deliver something here? What's the link, please?
Where is Yolo? Is he here?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
he's
yes,
my eyesight is going back now. Okay, Yolo.
Thank you, Councillor Irving. Well, I mean, the purpose of this report is to inform scrutiny about, where the council's up to. It is then for members to decide how you take that forward. Members may decide to call in a particular item for further scrutiny. That would be one mechanism. And you as councillors, of course, are entitled to raise your concerns with heads of service as well for further input.
You're happy with that, Hugh?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm happy. I just feel we're spending a lot of resource and a lot of time on compiling an excellent report. No problem with that at all. But we can see what it's telling us, but what are we doing? That's the the problem, and I haven't got the answers. I'm sure Julian hasn't. He'll just wonder something about money. But that's all the point.
I do more than mutter about money, Hugh, as you should know.
Okay.
But in reality, actually, what all joking apart, Yolo's quite right in what he says. I mean, if I know various reports on housing have come to various scrutiny committees over the period of time, and I don't know when it last came forward. But it may well be that you might ask chairs and vice chairs to consider bringing something forward, whether it's to your committee or to whichever committee is thought appropriate, on how we're proceeding with the provision of additional affordable housing. That might be a way forward if you obviously feel strongly enough about the subject.
Yeah, thank you. Hint taken. Leanne, I'll be in touch.
Thank you. I think Leanne wants to come in.
The housing strategy, which I think the council approved last December, is due to come to one of the scrutinies. I can't remember which one of them. I think it may be communities early in 2022 as part of the monitoring of the delivery of that strategy. But if you want a certain element of it to come to you beforehand, that's fine.
Anyone within the committee wants to come in? Any members? No? Right, do we go outside the committee now? We start with the Cynghorydd.
Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis. Thank you again, Chair. Thanks also to Liz and to Iolo and to Councillor Julia Thompson-Hill for the presentation. Thank you all very much. My memory is bad, but page 177, is this going down to the public? I can't remember. I'll get an answer to that first, but I've got a few more things to ask. What? Sorry, page 117. 137, sorry. You're breaking up a bit, so we're having difficulty hearing you. Page 137.
137.
Is Iolo going to answer that? Rhian, just for information, this report is on the public on the county website, so it's open to the public to see. So there's a Welsh version somewhere, is there? Carry on, Mary. If there's a Welsh version, because I haven't seen that one yet, it does say fair play. We welcome correspondence in Welsh. And then it says also that that there'll be no delay in responding. Does the English version say otherwise? That the report is available in English as well? That's one question. Rhian wants to come in to answer your question here. This is an appendix to the main report, so it's the cover report only that's available in Welsh, because the appendix is over 4 pages long. So that isn't, sorry Rhian, but if this is going out to the public, what I'm asking is whether there's a Welsh copy. I'm not asking the committee if there's a Welsh copy. I'm asking if it's going out to the public, is there a Welsh version? No, there isn't, because it's an appendix to a report to committee. Sorry, Rhian, we don't understand each other here. Sorry, Chair. Is the report, when everything has gone through this committee, will it then be shown to the public, or is this an internal report forever? This is a report that's part of the council agenda, this committee's agenda, so it's published as part of that on the website with the committee papers. It's not published separately to that. Okay, that's the answer I was after. Thanks very much. So I'll move on then to 144. You say here, extra care housing, April 2021. Do you happen to know whether we're right in terms of that date? Is it still going to be? Is it still on track? That's what I want to know. And the next page, 145, affordable housing. You mention Trevenant and the ADRA company. There's a date there. It says there's a problem with the water, and you're drawing attention to the fact that you're hoping that it will have been completed by February this year. I wonder whether somebody knows whether that has been resolved, because we're now in March. And another problem with regards to the estate, I don't know whether this is the place to raise it, but the Community Council have asked how many people with connections with Trevenant are going to live in the houses, and they can't get a response. And the final question, and thank you for your patience, Chair. 146. Empty homes back in use. Final line, by the end of the corporate plan. Now, for somebody like me, it's always useful to know when that comes to an end. Next year, the following year, you know, there should be an end to it somewhere. So just for information, really, thank you, Chair, and thanks to the officers. Thank you, Mary. You've asked a lot of questions there. We'll be here for a very long time answering them. I hope you all can be brief. And another person wants to ask a question as well.
You're coming in short and sweet, please.
Yeah, I will be quite short and sweet. In terms of dealing with the last question first, about the end of the corporate plan period mirrors the council period, so it runs until the end of this council, which is May next year. In terms of the specific questions you've asked on the housing element, obviously this is a report compiled by performance staff. We're not housing experts, so we wouldn't be able to answer those specific technical questions. I don't know whether Liz is still here. Obviously, she's the head of service that covers that, but she might not have that data to hand. So it might be a better idea, perhaps, if you addressed it either to Liz or to Liz and Jeff, who I'm sure would be able to pick those specific items up.
You want to come in, Liz?
Yeah, sorry. I missed one of your questions, but you were asking about the ADRA scheme. To be honest, that isn't my area. I'm just responsible for council houses, not for affordable housing. So that question, I think we'll take that away, and we'll get the answers to the questions.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to come in reply to Mary Gray Davis's question? Just to say, with regards to the dates of the extra care housing, April. Sorry, I can't hear. It's cutting up. Yes, that date is correct. No, we can't hear you very well. Right, the video's been turned off. Yes, the date of April 21, from what I know, is correct at the time of writing this report anyway. So hopefully that hasn't changed. And also, with regards to the date for the problems with water, we wrote this in February, so I assume that that's what's happened. But I don't know any further, I'm afraid. And also, with the question regarding how many people will be living in the new houses, unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. That will have to go to the developer himself. Thank you. Is that all right, Mairig? You happy? Right, and the final question now. I like to follow the timetable. I'm going to go to Councillor Emrys Wynne. Thank you. I won't be long. Two questions. Could I ask for the communities? There is obviously work to be done here in order to meet the targets. Are we in a situation where we can look forward in Denbighshire, in the Ruthin area and beyond, to be able to get this contact contact reaching the house rather than to the box down the road. The second question with regards to numbers on the register has raised immensely. Are we going to be able to meet that need that has increased so much in the last 12 months? And the third question to close is regarding care, extra care. I know there's been a postponement in terms of a well-on. Is there a date for that likely to come in the next few weeks?
Or to Yolo, I don't mind, all is.
I can pick up about the SARS waiting list. The numbers are have jumped up, and the difficulty that we have is we haven't got enough empty homes for people to move into. It's that simple. And remember also that the SARS register, people are homed by not just us, but also our registered social landlords, so Clwyd Allen, Adra, Wales and West. We're all working as hard as we possibly can. We keep our anybody that moves out, we try and keep things, keep the places empty for as short a period as possible, so we fill them up as quickly as possible. And we are all on a significant new build programme. But as you know, these things do take time, so it's a very challenging time. The other thing also is I think we are also working hard to promote access to the TITEG, which is the Affordable Housing Register, because I think, you know, there's a real chance a number of people who are on the SARF waiting list would actually be better served by going for, you know, for what's called affordable housing rather than waiting for social housing. So that's where we're going to be looking at. That's where we're going to be looking in the future, just to check that people are being supported to go down the appropriate route. But unfortunately, as I say, we just haven't got enough houses to be able to meet demand at the moment. But we're working hard on it.
Any reaction, Emrys? Can you shut on all?
Emrys, do you want to come back there? No, I've heard the answer. Thank you for that. There's a final opportunity to ask. Sorry, I've got the digital connection. Connected communities. I'm sorry, that's what I want. Do you mind asking the question again? What I'm asking is about the connected communities that's been connected. I'm talking about broadband mainly. Are we in a situation where we can look forward to seeing the fibre connection reaching the house and not just the box down the road? Well, it would be a question for BT, unfortunately. It's not a question that I can answer here today. I know that this is the problem. Councillor and the councillors and the council want to improve fibre rollout, but we're waiting for BT and Openreach. Yes, I know it says priority for improvement in the report, so there must be pressure coming from the county somewhere for BT to do something. Well, the pressure is the only thing that we can do. And the final question I had was to do with our well-on. There's been a delay there with the situation. Where are we at the moment? Yes, I've just tried to look.
No, I haven't got an answer. I was just going to say that I can have a word with Phil Gilroy after this meeting and ask him to circulate an update on that.
Thank you. All right, thanks very much. So I'll go back now to the recommendation.
It is recommended that the Performance Scrutiny Committee considers the report and any further action required to respond to any performance-related issues highlighted in the report. It's a good report, a lot of good work being done, Can someone propose that we are happy with the report, please? Thank you, Bob. And who's going to second?
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. Diolch yn fawr. Are we all in agreement? Those who are left of us? Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr. Okay. Diolch yn fawr. We
Thanks.
move on now to item 8, agenda item 8. And again, it's Julian, lead member here, and Yolo is still with us, and I'm sure Liz will be capable of answering a few questions here. This is the one regarding corporate risk register, and over to you, Mr. Julian Thompson-Hill.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just similar format to last time. I'll just give a very quick overview before handing over to Yolo. Just to point out for you that we've included, at request, I think, from when this last came to committee, as one of the appendices, a description of the risk scoring matrix, which hopefully makes it a little bit clearer how this has been made up. Just to very quickly summarise, there have been no new risks which have been identified since the report last came. One risk has been removed. That was the one about the delivery of the local delivery plan, as Welsh Government have now confirmed that the period for doing that has been extended. One has been, in terms of the health and safety risk, has been slightly increased in terms of the residual likelihood as a result of COVID. Hopefully that's just a temporary increase. A few others have been reduced. There's been a change on the ash dieback one, which has been updated to reflect the fact that initially we were looking to do this in a collaborative manner with other authorities, but that's now not been possible, so we'll be doing that in isolation. I think the other point I just wanted to highlight was in relation to the risk appetite. I'm sure you'll remember, I think it must have been about 18 months, probably going on for 2 years ago now, that time flies, that we actually introduced this additional way of looking at at risk. And you'll see from the report that roughly 50% of the corporate risks are shown as inconsistent with our risk appetite statement. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, and I'll ask Yolo to take you through this. But in fact, the fact that there is that degree of inconsistency actually justifies the fact that they are included as corporate risks in the register overall. But generally, not a great deal of movement since last time, Chair. So I'll hand over to Yolo to pick up a bit more detail, perhaps.
Thank you, Julian.
Hey, Julian. As you said, again, you've stolen the best parts of my speech. The report is, I think it's an improved report actually from the last one, because I think we compiled the last review in September in the middle of COVID and what it was doing to the county and everything. So we now have a better handle, I hope, on what the implications of COVID are on us. And also, I should say, we've had Brexit since then. So, you know, those two elements have been reflected in this update more thoroughly. Just to talk to you about risk appetite, I know this is, we had a session with SLT a couple of weeks ago, and SLT, to their credit, that they said, you know, risk appetite is a very complex thing, and, you know, it's going to take time for us all to understand it and get to grips with it. And the way this report looks at the moment does at first jump out at you as being a bad thing, but risk appetite is it's an extra tool to help us have the conversation about, are we doing enough? So although, you know, we have a number of risks here that are currently inconsistent with our risk appetite, I think that's fair enough for this register. We must remember that this is our corporate risk register. This is the most severe register of our risks. And it is seen by members, it is seen by Cabinet, it's owned by Cabinet and SLT, you know, so it has very senior management behind it. If conversely you were to look at a service risk register, and conduct an appetite again, an exercise of assessing it against our appetite, you'd actually find that they're a lot more consistent, which is good. That's where we would hope things to be. So the fact that these are not consistent, it justifies them in their own way of being on our corporate risk register. And I'll just give you two very brief examples. If we look at ash dieback. Ash dieback is a very new problem that the council is coming to grips with state. We don't fully understand the likelihood of a tree falling and killing someone or harming someone.
You're breaking up again.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Yolo.
You're breaking up, Yolo.
Yeah.
I'll switch the camera. Where did I?
You were on ash dieback.
Yeah. So, I mean, ash dieback is a very serious problem. But it's also a new problem for the council. We don't know where all the trees are on our estate, and we don't know where they might fall and what harm they could cause. There was a recent case of an ash tree falling in the south of England, and I think it killed a 9-year-old girl. You know, that is the scale we're looking at with ash dieback at the moment. We do not know if a similar event could happen. So as time goes on, we are going to do more work to understand the picture with ash dieback. We will develop action plans to tackle it, and much to Julian Thompson-Hill's delight, we will fund it. But, you know, it's a problem that we're going to gradually get to grips with. So as we do get to grips with it, we would expect the severity to fall, and it will become more in line with where we would hope it is in terms of our risk appetite. It'll head more in the direction of our risk appetite. Now, the other example is safeguarding. Safeguarding, we have, as a council, we have put in a new sentence, a new statement.
Can't hear again.
Am I with you now?
You're okay now.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
Yep.
So with safeguarding, our approach to risk appetite is minimalist, and that is correct. I don't think anybody would dispute that appetite is wrong. However, safeguarding, because of its very nature, it's never going to be fully within our control. We can put all the actions in the world in place, but we would never, ever be 100% on top of safeguarding. That is a sad fact that we as a council deal with day in, day out. So in that regard, we will never see that risk align with our risk appetite. But that doesn't mean our risk appetite is wrong. It is our ambition to always do our very best in terms of safeguarding. So that's just two examples which I hope helps members thinking. But otherwise, I've got nothing else to say on the report. I do feel it is an improved position from the last September review. Otherwise, happy to take questions.
Well, nobody wants to ask a question at the moment. Could you explain? I'll come to you, Andrew, after.
Okay.
This word safeguard, because I happen to be on the governors of one of the schools in Denbighshire, and this word safeguard comes up all the time. And you say here, self-assessments for schools in relation to safeguarding has been established. Could you explain what exactly do you mean by safeguarding? Because you could cover all kinds of things. You know what happened to Miss Everard now, down in the East London area. So could you be more specific about safeguarding? Is there something I would like to know more about, please?
Well, I think there is a spectrum. You know, at one extreme, safeguarding is about the protection of vulnerable citizens, no matter who they are. Young children, you know, they are vulnerable. They are in our care. Elderly individuals living alone in our community, they are also a risk. You know, so there's a massive spectrum of what safeguarding encompasses. To be fair, it is a very broad term, but essentially, it is about protecting individuals from harm where they are vulnerable to it.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Councillor Andrew Thomas.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm just intrigued, say on page 152, where you list the various statuses of the various measures, and you come up with this phrase, priority for improvement. Example, Class C roads, poor condition, priority for improvement. And I've got to say that's a very wishy-washy statement. It doesn't tell me what you're going to do about it. I mean, have we got the funds to deal with it? Similarly with broadband and things like that, priority for improvement. And I've got to say, it doesn't give me the information. What are we going to do about it? It's a woolly statement, I'm afraid.
How are you going to answer that?
Just a comment, really.
Yeah, I mean, that actually, Andrew, is on the previous report. That I think
I thought it was on the wrong.
Yes,
yes.
that actually refers to the corporate plan report that we've just been discussing. But just to confirm, what we have assigned the term priority for improvement to is essentially any measure which falls below the Welsh median level on a benchmarking scale. Now, within specific areas, I can't speak about highways or anything else. I don't have the degree of knowledge with to answer that specific question. But that is essentially what this report is about. It flags up in that particular area we are below the Welsh median average, and therefore we would be wanting to put some sort of measures in place to get us above that Welsh median. The specific detail, as I say, would need to be referred to the individual head of service or whatever to actually respond to. I suppose that's the only way I can answer that. The report that Yolo and the team have compiled is obviously based on the information provided by individual services, but at the end of the day, it's for the service to respond to a service-specific query, I suppose. I'm not just trying to cop out on that one. It's just that they've got the better knowledge.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I go now to Councillor Paul Penlington, please. Diolch yn fawr, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. First question, are we allowed to make reference to the meeting we had on Monday, or do we need to keep that quiet for now?
No.
No.
Okay, second question then. How often are these risk assessments reviewed and updated?
Yolo, is it every 6 months, is it? I can't remember.
Sorry, when you're talking about risk assessments, are you talking about this report here, the risk review, or the assessments that, the safeguarding assessments that were referred to earlier?
No, the risk register, I presume you mean, Paul, is it?
Yes, I didn't quite catch what you said. That's what I mean, yes.
Yeah.
No, they're every 6 months.
Every
Yeah,
6 months.
yeah, that's when they're officially reviewed, but the corporate risks are monitored on an ongoing basis.
Well, I was asking because, sorry, yeah, I was asking because we're living in a bit of a movable feast in lots of ways at the moment, aren't we?
Yes, that's right. And I think probably just to give you assurance that it's the way we manage our risk is we make somebody a risk owner. So all of our risks have got a name against it. But as you can see from the mitigating actions in terms of managing that risk, it's very much addressed corporately. So in effect, we share the risk across all of SLT. That's why the report comes to SLT first, and SLT feed information into the into Yola's review so that they understand what's going on across the organisation.
Yeah, and similarly, Cabinet do a similar function. We review it on a 6 monthly basis as well.
Okay, Paul.
Yes,
yeah, you're right. There's a risk owner to everyone, every risk, isn't it? Risk 16, for instance, is Steve Gadd. Well, most of his work is to do with finance, and these risks, if the finance isn't there, it's going to be more of a risk, isn't it, Julian?
That's always a risk, yes.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Any comments from even those from the outside of the committee haven't come back to us? You're right, Kath? No, nobody. Good.
Nope.
No, okay. We're doing very well. So I'll go now and try and find the beginning of this, that we recommend this report from Yolo. And we're very grateful to Yolo for all the work you've done over this this report is a very good one, actually. So are we all in agreement that we recommend that we carry on and keep an eye on this in the future, please? So, thank you, Ellie, and seconded by Paul Penlington. Diolch yn fawr iawn. We move on. We finished earlier than I thought. Diolch yn fawr. We're going to agenda item 9, if Rhian is ready.
Yes, diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is your usual work programme. As it stands at the moment in Appendix 1 on page 253, your next meeting is supposed to be on the 29th of April, and there's only one item down there, and that's the Draft Director of Social Services Annual Report. That is a statutory report that has to be presented to the Welsh Government by the end of July, I think so. You'll remember that last year the government said that this report didn't have to be presented because the services were responding to COVID. They've decided this year that the report is going to be presented, and it will be a report covering 2 years rather than 1 as usual. But because of that, the report is not going to be ready for you by the 29th of April. They're working towards a date in June to bring it before you. So I don't know whether you're happy with that. Well, we're happy to have anything before us, obviously, but I know Councillor Emrys Wynne wants to present one thing to you after the Welsh Language Steering Committee, and maybe we could deal with that, but we must meet as chairs and vice chairs first, mustn't we? And that's not till the 29th of April either. Is it possible for us to take these decisions virtually before that? If there's an urgent request, we can circulate it through email, maybe. But in terms of this report now, are you happy for this to be moved to June? I'm happy, and I'm sure everybody else within the committee is happy with that.
April. Yeah, everything happy? Pawb yn hapus? Diolch yn fawr. Great.
I'll leave the date in anyway, in case there will be another item that might emerge.
In April, good. You can go on holiday. No, you can't. With COVID.
There's a report down there on Hafan Deg. Last time you agreed to move this to July because Hafan Deg more or less hasn't been open for almost a year now. I've had a little bit more information about this, and Hafan Deg has been open, but only for 2 people, from what I believe, over this period. So it's not working as it should do at the moment, and they don't know yet when that will happen because of the COVID restrictions, of course. But the plan is, because the contract with the company is due to come to an end, I think, in August this year, the plan is to set the contract again for another 2 years. And what they're asking is whether they can come back to you in 12 months' time with an assessment of how things work, how they can grow the business and so on.
I am happy. We're all in agreement. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr. I think we'll put your hands up, please. Diolch yn fawr.
And then, if you recall, you went on a training session recently on socio-economic duty coming in from the last day of March. So from the next meetings onwards, there'll be a request for you to be looking at the wellbeing impact assessment in terms of that as well. So that's just a reminder more than anything. It's Nicola Neal who's leading on that. And in Appendix 2, you have the application form that you mentioned. So if you have got any item that you would like the chairs and vice chairs group to consider, fill one of those forms in, send it to me, and then I can share it with the chairs and vice chairs group. Appendix 3, you'll see the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. And in Appendix 4, there's progress with committee resolutions from the last meeting. I don't think I've got anything else to add unless members have got anything to raise.
Rhian? Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Right, well, we're very grateful to Rhian. She's like an anchor to every committee she's on.
I'm embarrassing her now after the first jab. But this Oxford one is a bit nasty, isn't it? I'm all right. I'm old. The older people are all right after it, but the younger ones, they are affected by the jab from Oxford. So we are grateful for Rhian to come in after the injection yesterday. She wasn't well at all. Gai ddiolch yn fawr I Rhian.
Could I thank Rhian? Could I thank Liz too for staying with us?
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody for attending today, and thanks to the translator. And thanks to Kath by my side here. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Meeting committee representative here, I can answer back to you. Felly, diolch yn fawr. Gwelwn I chi eto.
So thank you. We'll see you again.
Oh,
Okay.
Ellie, yes, please.
Oh no, I was just saying
Oh.
bye-bye.
Oh, I see.
Bye, Ellie.
Okay, goodbye. Ta-da.
Yeah, ta-ta.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.